Hello, Bill.
Hey David, how's it going?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's Friday, which is never a bad thing in my opinion.
Never, never indeed.
Okay, so hopefully we've got a few people watching. So hi to everybody who's watching. I've got 11 people here at the moment. So we're just repeating what we did about a month ago or something like that, maybe a bit over a month, and just keeping the Bond chat as we're not recording on James Bond and Friends tonight. So uh, something that I wanted to talk about with Bill was the Man from U.N.C.L.E, because he's a bit of a connoisseur, expert in U.N.C.L.E. I used to years ago when I was a kid. I used to love the Man from U.N.C.L.E. I used to love Mission Impossible, and I wasn't all that impressed by the movie that came out a few years ago. I kicked myself when I found out it actually premiered in Barcelona. There's a really good cinema in Barcelona, Phenomena, I think it's called, and it's a fantastic cinema that they show, as well as new films. They also show old classics as well. So it's quite a good setup to go, and the cinema here is dirt cheap compared with the UK, certainly. And I only found out afterwards that it was shown there a couple of weeks before it showed anywhere else, but I eventually caught it on TV or I can't remember if I paid for it, probably. And when I saw it, I thought that oh God, I can't remember the name of the actor now. The
Henry
one who was
Cavill.
yes. I mean, he's a bit of a wooden actor. I know a lot of people like him, but I thought he was basically doing an impression of oh my God, of Robert.
Robert Vaughn,
Yeah, he was doing an impression of Robert Vaughan, I
particularly
think.
with his dramatic pauses. Because I remember when the first
That's
teaser
it,
trailer,
exactly. Yeah.
the first teaser trailer came out, and there was this scene of him and Alicia Vikander in the car, and he's laying down in the back seat. Are they following us? Like, oh, I mean, he had claimed during publicity to have never watched a single episode of the show. And well, boy, if he didn't, somebody coached him on how to talk like Robert Vaughn.
Yeah, well, if he didn't, then he went to a voice coach who taught him to speak like Robert Vaughan exactly, or well, not exactly, like a wooden version of Robert Vaughan.
Yeah, yeah. Whereupon Army Hammer, he claimed to have watched like 3 of the 4 seasons of shows.
Mm,
So it's like now, of course, he's under investigation for sexual assault. So, like,
mhm.
well, not that there was a very good chance of there being a sequel, but now I'd say they're absolutely non-existent.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, but okay, we've kind of dived in at the deep end of the film rather than going back to the origins. And before we talk about that, really, there are a couple of things that you mentioned that we ought to talk about, because we've unfortunately had a couple more deaths this week. So do you want to talk about that?
Sure. It was about 10 days ago, I guess, that Nikki Vanderzil passed away, or at least news of it came out that she had passed away. And of course, she goes all the way back to the beginning of the film series. And she, and of course, today, as we're talking, it's Ursula Andress's birthday, and there's a lot of posts, understandably. Oh, happy birthday to the first Bond girl, Ursula Andress, etc. But of course, it was Nikki Vanderzil who gave Honey Rider her voice, because the producers, I guess, deemed Ursula Andress's accent too strong, and so they got her to do it. And then Nikki Vanderzil dubbed many of the female characters. I guess she did dubbed Tatiana in From Russia with Love. She dubbed Domino in Thunderball.
I mean, she provided the voice for so many of the female characters in the early Bonds. It's incredible, and
I know.
I'm really surprised that there's nothing on the official 007 site, as far as I know.
Well, I'm under the impression that there was some kind of falling out between her and Eon about they didn't like her taking credit for all the work she did,
right,
or something. Yeah, it's you would have thought. I mean, because she worked on the series through Moonraker, and and made a really big impression, big impact on the series, and they did a really good job with the dubbing. I mean, it's the lip movements are very close. I mean, I've seen bad dub jobs, but that's not the case with those early Bond films. But yeah, and like you said, a lot of fans took notice, but not. It's funny. I haven't seen that many entertainment outlets, for that matter, take note of her passing. I mean, the New York Times had done a video of her back in 2013. It was just her and a microphone reading, her lines from Dr. No. And I remember when I wrote up my obituary for that, I embedded that video in the post. But her passing outside of the immediate fan community did not seem to get much attention, which is a shame.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a BBC program called Antiques Roadshow, and I think I caught her on that quite a few years ago. It was it was after I'd moved to Spain, and we used to manage to get BBC because basically the way that the satellite. There was a satellite broadcasting BBC and all the UK channels, and it did it over most of Europe as well. So you could actually watch it for free. But then they switched satellite with a much narrower focus, so we don't get it anymore. But in those days, she was interviewed on Antiques Roadshow. I think she must have just showed up. I don't remember if she was a special guest or anything, but she did speak a bit about her work on the Bond films.
Interesting. And I know James Bond Radio had an interview with her. I want to say 2015. I'm not sure of the exact year, but I remember I looked it up when I was preparing that obituary, and I watched a few minutes of it. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. But yeah, she just seemed to be kind of, I don't know, disowned is probably too strong a term, but for whatever reason, she's kind of persona non grata. And I'm not sure. I've heard people comment about this apparent split, but I don't know the details. And it's a shame. It's a shame her passing did not get more notice than it did. Put it that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, shame, but and there's been another big one as well, unfortunately. I mean, this year's been full of them. It's been terrible, but in a film series that is, almost 60 years old, it's bound to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we're talking about Yaphet Kotto, who, of course, had played Dr. Kananga, who also masqueraded as Mr. Big in Live and Let Die. And his passing now did get a lot of attention. And the thing was, in terms of U.S. time, East Coast U.S. time, the news started to come out late on, was it Monday night of that week? Anyway, it was very late. And what happened was his wife posted to a fan site on Facebook about his passing. And I was thinking, boy, I was feeling a little leery. It's like, do I want to do anything based on this? But then I saw the name. I confirmed, yeah, that is his wife, and it's definitely some kind of semi-authorized fan site. and other entertainment sites began going with it. So I, sorry, I had to adjust my microphone there. Anyway, just I decided to go with it, and I was up really late. I was up far later than I should have been. And then Variety came out, and this is about like 2:30 in the morning my time, came out with its story, and it managed to get a confirmation from his agent. So I remember I got out of bed, went to the computer and updated my post to link to the Variety story and note the confirmation from the agent. But yeah, he had an interesting career because he came in toward the end of what I call old Hollywood, where he was doing movies in the 60s, and things were about to change, but he was always very prominent in his films. Even if he had a small role, he had a way of making you notice him. He could steal a scene pretty easily, and so he had a really long career, and and his passing did get a lot of attention, understandably.
Certainly,
Yeah, and he's certainly a highlight of that movie because his Dr. Kananga acts a lot different than his Mr. Big, and then kind of at the end, the whole character seems to come together. Particularly in that last sequence in the underground lair, if you want to, whatever you want to call it. And the other thing was he was 12 years younger than Roger Moore, but it didn't seem like it. They seemed about the same age.
Certainly, yes. Yeah.
I don't know if Kotto just played older. Roger Moore certainly at that point played younger, and so like they meet somewhere in the middle because watching the movie they seem roughly the same age. So I mean, again, it's a shame. I mean, it's it's the way of the world, of course, but it's still it's still sad when it happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and because the other big film that he was in, and I hadn't realized it was the same actor for years, is Alien.
Right. Oh yeah,
and which I love that film. It's one of my favorites, and I hadn't connected him for some reason.
And he was also nominated for an Emmy for playing Idi Amin in this production about the 1976 Entebbe raid. It was where the Israeli military rescued almost all of the hostages on the plane. And ironically, Julius W. Harris, who also was in Live and Let Die, there were competing productions. And so Julius W. Harris also played Idi Amin in the other production. What happened was there was one that was going to be done on videotape, done in a studio, and the other was going to be shot more like a movie. And the latter is what Yaphet Kotto was in. Julius W. Harris was a last-minute replacement because originally it was going to be Godfrey Cambridge who played Idi Amin, and then Godfrey Cambridge died of a heart attack. And Idi Amin, upon hearing news about this, gloated very publicly about it. But again, a lot of people that Entebbe production it was one of the things people were praising Yaphet Kotto about, and also on Alien, I remember somebody just tweeted, says, every time I watch Alien, I keep hoping Parker, his character name, will live. Damn it, he never does. But
yeah, I just interrupt you a moment. I've got some of the comments here. One from Edgar, who says, "Bill, I think what you're trying to say is that he had a way of inflating his presence on set." Yeah, very funny.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything more you wanted to say about him?
No, he's he'll be missed. He's just he was a very good actor, real pro.
Okay, so let us. Well, I don't think there's anything else about Bond at the moment. There's Billie Eilish won a Grammy for her theme song for a film which hasn't yet been released, as we all know.
Right.
um, uh, what else?
That's about it.
Yes.
There really has been no. Well, I mean, there's been no signs that it's going to be delayed any further. I'm getting to be cautiously optimistic they're going to meet this release date.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm a bit more optimistic than I was after the last delay. I thought it's still not going to be we're not going to be in a place where they can release it. But the vaccine rollout in the States and in the UK has been pretty spectacular. In Europe, we're lagging behind a bit. So they're talking about maybe my age group will start to get the COVID jab in June. So what we're well behind, but the UK certainly is there, and the States too.
Okay. Yeah, I think I believe the movie theaters in Los Angeles have reopened. Now, of course, it's severe, attendance restrictions. I think 25% at least to start. And I think they're opening up in New York. If they haven't already, they're about to. So things are sort of kind of advancing. I mean, we're still, at least in the big picture, we gotta take 2 steps forward, then 1 step back, because there's been some areas that have had uptick in cases, including Michigan, where I live. That's just happened here in the last 2 weeks. So we'll see. But I give it above 50%. I kind of, at one point, in fact, I recorded something with the James Bond complex on that day of that recording. I said, 55, 45. Then when the upticks came, I thought, well, maybe 52, 53. I don't know. I kind of,
yeah, I think the biggest question around September or October for the States is really whether they're going to have a premiere or what form the premiere takes, because I can't see that getting 5,000 people or 3,000 people or however many people fit into the Royal Albert Hall is going to happen at all. Or even if they operate at 25% capacity, I just can't see that they're going to want to attract crowds of people into, even if it's outdoors to watch the actors arrive at the Royal Albert Hall. I can't see that happening. If they do a premiere, maybe it's more likely to be a live stream. And I think they were talking about that when they were planning on releasing it when was it? It was October, I think it was. Was it October, November? I can't remember. It's been changed so many times.
Yeah, I'd have to look up the dates. I need to create a chart with the various release dates.
Yeah, you'd think that somebody might have a complete list of all these things somewhere, Bill.
Well, I have the list. It's just a nice, easy to look at chart just for the release dates that I haven't gotten around to doing. Oh wait, I bet it. Wait, just a second. I think I can remember most of them, because it was originally going to be October/November of 2019. Then it became February of 2020.
Yeah.
Then it became April of 2020.
Yeah.
Then I think it was like March 31st was the world premiere, but most of it being April. Then we had November of 2020.
Yeah.
Then we had, what was it? It was going to be April. It was going to be April of 2021. Yeah. And then now it's October/November. I'm sorry,
September, yeah.
September/October of
Yeah. Yeah.
2021.
I mean, in the last live stream we did, we were talking about the delays and how it's not just been because of COVID. Because if they'd hit that if they'd hit the first planned release, then we'd have seen it by now, and we wouldn't be in this situation. We'd all be wondering who was going to replace Daniel Craig and when they're going to get going with the next Bond film. But
Right.
it's maybe it's actually a scam and that they haven't shot the film at all. And basically, Eon have pocketed the money. They've released a few behind the scenes shots, and it's just going to be an infinitely delayed film.
Well, remember, Barbara Broccoli said she was at one point said she was denial that Daniel Craig's era was going to end. So that would be one way of prolonging it, was keep this movie from coming out. I don't know. That's a joke. That's a joke, by the way.
Yeah. Anyway, we were going to talk about The Man from U.N.C.L.E, and specifically since we are supposed to be doing a Bond live stream, we need to link it to Bond. Can you think of a way of linking it to Bond, Bill?
Well, I think Ian Fleming's one way, because he helped name Napoleon Solo, and he actually had other ideas, but that's the main one. Although he did have an idea that Solo liked to cook, and while the Robert Vaughn Solo never cooked, the Henry Cavill Solo did cook. Now, whether the filmmakers knew about that idea of Fleming, I don't know, but at least that Fleming notion finally saw the light of day in 2015. But what happened was, I can tell you I'll try and keep this as brief as I can. What the origin was, there was a television producer. He was actually born in England, named Norman Felton. He emigrated to the States, and by the early 60s, he's making mostly serious TV shows like Dr. Kildare and The 11th Hour. And anyway, he is approached by NBC, by some advertising agencies about Ian Fleming's new book, Thrilling Cities. Can you make this into a TV show? So and the book's not even out yet, so they give him a galley proof to read. And he looks it over, and it's like, he concludes, no, there's no TV show here. This is just a travelogue. But a meeting's been set up, and so you've got network executives, you got advertising people. It's like you don't pass it up. So he goes to the meeting and he ad-libs a pitch for an adventure show with a spy type of person, and they like it. But then one of them says, if you could get Ian Fleming, we could even like do the story without a pilot. And so a meeting was indeed set up at the very end of October of 1962. I mean, bear in mind, like Dr. No just came out on October 5th of that year. So and the Cuban Missile Crisis was that month. So it was a very active time for Ian Fleming. But so he and Felton met in New York. They met for 3 days. But the way Felton told the story was he had trouble getting Fleming to concentrate on what they were supposed to be doing. Fleming's doing a lot of walking. He's telling stories about, World War II and things like that. So finally, Felton borrows a typewriter from his hotel. He types up a bunch of ideas, presents them to Fleming. Well, Fleming likes them, and like, can I have some of these? No, you can't have these. They're my ideas. So then Fleming says, well, let me have a look, and I'll get back to you this afternoon. And he comes back with 11 telegram blanks, handwritten with ideas. A lot of it's characters. There's a few plot ideas, but there's a lot of stuff, about the character of Solo. He shouldn't be a Superman, but he's got these attributes, et cetera, et cetera. So, but Fleming was never going to do the heavy writing, and others, prepared worked out the ideas. But I think Fleming, from his perspective, I think he was looking to diversify his revenue stream. And the problem was Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman soon learned of this, and they did not like this. and they started pressuring him to get out of the project. Now, the guy who wrote the pilot is named Sam Rolfe, and he made an appearance at a fan convention in the early 90s. It's called SpyCon. I think it was in New Jersey. Now, he claimed, and I've seen the video.
Did you go to this conference?
No, I did not. No.
No.
I saw a video years after the fact, but I did talk to people who had gone. And so apparently Rolfe claimed that the story he had been told was that Ian Fleming was desperately afraid that Harry Saltzman would try to have him killed. And when I first heard that, I thought that sounds awfully far-fetched. But that was before I learned, started reading about how volatile a character Saltzman really was. Yeah. So maybe Fleming really was scared of him. I don't know. But in any case, Fleming eventually does exit the project, and he sells his rights to it for £1 British. And I've got a digital copy of that letter. I think Felton had to go over to England, and they had a meeting in a lawyer's office. And, here's the letter, and it's all notarized and all this stuff. But he gets out of it, and eventually it proceeds. Again, this Sam Rolfe person is writing the pilot, and he would end up being the producer for the first season. And they were off from there. But Broccoli and Saltzman actually did try to have the production stopped in early '64. Their lawyers sent a cease and desist letter, and I've seen a copy of that too. Because of course the name is Napoleon Solo, but of course one of the gangsters in Goldfinger was named Mr. Solo, and this was the basis. I mean, the two characters are nothing alike. They just happen to have the same surname, but that was the basis. And so then there became these negotiations. And so, because originally they were going to call the show Solo, and there's in fact a series proposal that on the cover page actually says Ian Fleming Solo. The thing was, that was written almost entirely by Sam Rolfe. He did not know about that cover page until decades later. He saw a copy of it with that cover page, and I'm told by someone who witnessed it, said, "Oh, he about blew a fuse." He was still mad about it.
But of course, recently there was a continuation novel called Solo, the one by William Boyd.
Yes, there was. I remember that because they were doing some kind of live tweeting thing. Ian Fleming Publications was, and now here's the new title, Solo. And then I was monitoring this. I thought, what? And they go on and on about what an original title Solo is. And then that was too much for me. So I started tweeting about the obvious ties. It's Ian Fleming Publications. Hey, there was this other thing called Solo. It's your guy, Ian Fleming, he was involved with it.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my Twitter followers then tweeted at me, said, "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" And I replied, "I am laughing my head off." They just acted. They were obviously not going to acknowledge this. And my guess is, probably the reason they weren't going to acknowledge it was because Uncle Ian sold off the rights. It's we can't get any money off of it. So we're going to pretend it doesn't exist.
Of course, yes. Okay. And, sorry, I just, yes. I put out a request for questions for you, by the way, Bill.
Oh,
and,
okay.
There are a few that have come in, so I don't know if you want to dive in now or whether we do it later.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So this one from Rob Merritt: did Uncle ever reference Bond in an episode?
No, never did. Probably because they were afraid to, because the show was actually pitched. I mean, this isn't anything the public would see, but when it's pitching, it was pitched as James Bond for television, and then because of that legal conflict, I think there was no way they were ever going to mention Bond on that show formally.
Because the thing is, I used to watch The Man from U.N.C.L.E. on TV, aged about 8 or 10 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And I used to love it, but I haven't seen it for so long. I barely remember anything about it. I watched the films that where they took, several couple of episodes and spliced them together and all that kind of thing. I remember seeing those. I would have been watching it in black and white to start with, at least. And did they switch to color? I can't even remember that.
The show first season aired in black and white. Now the pilot was filmed in color, and one other episode was filmed in color, but that was so they could then add scenes and release them as movies. But all the other episodes were actually filmed in black and white. And then at the start of the second season, they switched to color, and it was obviously color through the rest of the run.
Okay. Yeah, I just I can't remember that at all. But so it's a long time ago. Right, next question. So what about Michael Caine as the poor man's Bond, Harry Palmer? Well, don't know if that's an actual question. But yeah, I haven't seen the Harry Palmer films for a long time, but I did enjoy those. Yeah.
And they, of course, were produced by Harry Saltzman. And in 1965, November 65, the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, they interviewed Broccoli and Saltzman. And they're talking about, and of course, because it's the CBC, they list Saltzman first because he's Canadian. But anyway, they're talking about their future projects. Yes, we plan to do. In fact, at that point, they said they were still planning on doing On Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1966, and You Only Live Twice after that. And then Saltzman starts talking about the Harry Palmer films, and then there's this shot as he's talking. Broccoli, you can practically see the little knives coming out of his eyes. he's just glowering at the guy, and it's like I suspect the CBC cameraman was getting more than he realized because when you know what would happen years later, it's like I don't think Covey's too happy with Harry talking up Harry Palmer.
Yeah, I've also I've read at least one of the books that the films were based on. I've got the Ipcress file. I'm not sure if I've got any of the other books. Maybe there were some later books that I don't remember. It's I've read a lot of stuff and I can't remember it. Like I can't remember watching U.N.C.L.E. when I was a kid.
Well, didn't in the books, like the character, they never said what the character's name was.
That's right. He's unnamed. Certainly in the first book, and I can't remember if I read the later books, and I don't remember how many books there are in the series. I'm sure there was a more recent one, and by more recent, so sometimes with music, and I see records were released 30 years ago, and I think bloody hell, I always thought that was a recent record. So it's just time flies.
Well, when they were doing the Ipcress File movie, they had to okay, we got to give the guy a name, and I don't know how they came up with Palmer, but Harry was for Harry Saltzman.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a question from Tim Hans. And what chances of an U.N.C.L.E. movie reboot or streaming series?
I don't know about what chance, but I think a streaming series is probably the best way to go because the movie business has gotten so uncertain. And and that 2015 movie didn't do that well, at the box office. It's like, yes, the movie's gotten some, excuse me, pardon me. It's gotten some reconsideration. Like some people say, well, that was better than I thought kind of articles. But that's, given how uncertain the whole business is, that's not a whole lot to, we got to make a sequel. And it's like, so I think at this point you start over and probably a streaming show is the way to go.
And actually, talking about that, there is a new Harry Palmer series. I'm not sure whether it just does the Ipcress file or whether it does
But
more.
yeah, I saw that. I'm curious about that because I'm curious about will they call him Harry Palmer? Because if it's they don't have to. They could.
I believe that there's some involvement from the Saltzmans.
Okay. Okay.
So I would guess yes. But and I'm not. Is that the BBC doing that? I can't remember.
I can't remember either, but yeah, Steven Saltzman is
Hmm.
involved with that. I do remember that. So yeah, they probably will call him Harry Palmer
Yeah,
just in memory
I
of
would
old
say so.
dad.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be interested in seeing it. I mean, the book is so confusing. I can remember that. I was just reading. I mean, the film is a bit like that as well. But I just remember reading it, thinking, "What the hell is happening?"
Well,
It's.
and remember, Len Dayton did uncredited work on From Russia with Love, the
Hmm.
film.
Hmm.
Um, Now, how much he did, I don't know exactly. I saw a quotation from a Richard Maybaum interview where he said that I think Dighton had done about 35 pages, but wasn't getting anywhere. Um, I mean, Maybaum had his own. I mean, Maybaum, he had he was very, I'm trying to think of the right word. He had his own self interest here. So how unbiased a view he had is
Hmm.
perhaps debatable, but
Okay. Next question. David McCallum, was the Man from U.N.C.L.E.'s teleprogram demise for credible acting?
um, not sure what they're asking. I mean,
No.
he's had a really long career. I don't think like the Man from U.N.C.L.E. held him back, and he ended up doing, of course, NCIS here in the States, and
Hmm.
he's currently not on it. He may come back, as a guest, because his character is retired, I guess. And the guy is like 87 years old. So
Yeah,
it's,
because I remember in the 70s he was in The Invisible Man as well, wasn't he?
yes, yes.
And do you know if he was in? There was a BBC
With
series
Diana
which
Rigg.
was with okay. I, Diana Rigg was in that.
Yeah. Well, if it's the one I'm thinking of, because like Diana Rigg is like, it turns out is this really disturbed woman, but nobody realizes it. And he's like her ex-husband.
Hmm. Oh,
Um, I think the word mother is in the title somehow. I can't remember. It got really good reviews at the time. It at least, when it was shown here in the States,
yeah.
it was imported from the BBC and shown
Okay.
in the
Yeah,
US.
there was another BBC. And I think he was in it, which was Cold It.
Hmm. That I'm not familiar with.
Hang on, let me get on. Let me get on Google.
Well, while you do that, I'll just tell a real quick anecdote. So, like in 1997, I think it was an off Broadway play, but he was doing a play in New York. And the New York Times did a feature story about him. And in this play, I think he plays the same character at like two different stages of life. So he's got to look, young and then look older. Anyway, it was talking about how he was still at that point still being dogged by his fans from the Man from U.N.C.L.E. So you have these women who had been teenagers when the show was on, and now they're middle-aged women, and they're like buying tickets to see this play, and they're like, this is a slight exaggeration, but they're like in the seats, Ilya, 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 and, and um, now, from what I understand, he's very patient with fans. He would stay and he
mhm.
would, sign all the autographs everybody wanted and stuff. But I think one of the points was he was getting he'd gone past being tired of being identified with that role. But like I said, NCIS came on in I think 2003, whatever, and he was on that thing for years. So I think he's kind of made his peace with it. But
And okay, I have finished my Google session, and the answer is right. Public service announcement. David McCallum was in Colditz.
all right.
Yeah. which, for anyone who doesn't know, was a Second World War prisoner of war camp, which was notoriously hard to escape from, but plenty of people did.
Yeah, and there's some photos. He was with Sean Connery at some event.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one picture I've seen a lot, and because I use it on my Man From U.N.C.L.E. site. It's like Connery, there's a woman in between, and then there's McCallum, and both Connery and McCallum are smoking cigarettes. And the woman, turns out, it was an actress named Mae Britt. She was married to Sammy Davis Jr. So I've subsequently seen another photo. It must have been, outside that same event, maybe afterwards. It's got Connery, McCallum, and Sammy Davis Jr. And of course, Connery is so tall, and those two are short. So he's like Connery looks like a giant standing next to him.
Yeah, I can imagine. But just to return to McCallum in the UK in the early 70s was big. Colditz, I hadn't realised this. It was 1972. Unfortunately, I can actually remember when it was first on TV.
Oh, he also did a show with Joanna Lumley called Sapphire and Steel.
Ah,
Now,
yes.
which I know next to nothing about. I just know of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know it has a following, a fan following, but I don't know the details.
Okay, right. We've got more questions. We've got a few here. So we need to finish at the half hour mark. So I think we've got enough questions to keep us going. But if we get through them all, then keep asking questions. I'm sure Bill's happy to talk Uncle or Bond. Right. So another one from Tim Hands. How did? No, sorry, I missed one from Charles. I think any of the Uncle novels worth reading. Have you read any of them?
Yes, I have. The ones by a guy named David McDaniel are the
Mm-hmm.
most worth reading. What happened was, they did 20. They published 23 of these things, tied in novels, and so they have different authors, and like a lot of these were done like by professional tie-in writers. Certainly the first one was, but McDaniel came in around the fourth in the U.S., called The Dagger Affair, and he cooked up an origin for Thrush, the villainous organization. Now it runs counter to what was presented in the show. But he decided to tie Thrush to Professor Moriarty, from Sherlock Holmes, and I think he managed to avoid actually saying Professor Moriarty. But it's if you know anything at all about Holmes, it's pretty clear who he's talking about. And so he made Thrush an acronym. Let's see if I can remember it, because it's a little unwieldy. I think it was the Technological Hierarchy for the Removal of Undesirables and the Subjugation of Humanity.
Yeah, I think that's it. That just rolls off the tongue.
No wonder they shortened it to Thrush. But anyway, like some hardcore Uncle fans, they like the McDaniel version better than what was in the show. So they say, as far as we're concerned, it's canon.
Mm-hmm.
I would not go that far. It's definitely an entertaining take on it. In the novel, Uncle and Thrush are forced to combine forces because somebody has gotten their hands on some kind of doomsday weapon. But the McDaniel novels, they are pretty entertaining. He was like more of a fan who happened to be writing, as opposed to these other guys it was just another job for them. Because I know he also liked to drop in. Again, he couldn't actually name the characters, but he would he was pretty strongly hinting, that he was dropping in cameos of like John Steed and Emma Peel and things like that. So anything by David McDaniel's worth checking out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think we've answered that fairly thoroughly. I keep losing the question. I keep losing where I am. Where am I? Where am I? Okay. Now we've answered that question. Oh, hi, Joe. Just seen Joseph Darlington is watching. Being James Bond, of course, but everyone knows Joe. $1 billion brain and funeral in Berlin. Yeah. Okay. This is terrible. Be far better to record these than edit out all these bits when I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, one real quick thing about those Harry Palmer films is they all have Bond crew members. I mean, it varies somewhat. I mean, Ipcress File in particular, it's got John Barry, it's got Ken Adam, it's got Peter Hunt. Guy Hamilton directed Funeral in Berlin, and what was it? $1 Billion Brain has Maurice Binder titles. So yeah, I mean, Saltzman was definitely, turning to James Bond crew members on those films.
Mm-hmm. Right. In the comments, I've just got some more information. David McCallum was in The Great Escape, and Robert Wagner was also in Colditz. So thanks for that. Yeah. Okay. 633 Squadron. He's in everything, basically. No, I've just lost where I was.
There's an episode of Jukebox Jury from 1960 where he and his then wife Jill Ireland are competing against Nina Van Pallant and her husband, who were like at that time some kind of act. And Jukebox Jury had a John Barry theme music. This is obviously before the Bond film, so this is, I think they were just using one of his existing compositions, but it's a weird thing to watch. I've seen it on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. Right. In fact, I said there were a load of questions there. It's actually not questions. It's just comments. So thanks for the comments. There's somebody that thanked you for your answer. I've just lost it again.
That's okay. I'll catch up with it. On the replay.
Anybody got any more questions for Bill? Got any questions for me about U.N.C.L.E? You can talk about Bond. You want to really take it off topic? Take it off topic.
Oh, by the way, I actually have a copy of that right here. This is the first McDaniel book, The Dagger Affair. Okay. So that's what it looks like.
Have you got it there?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You
want to just...
Okay, yeah. If you hold it back a bit from the screen. Okay.
Like that.
Okay, so everyone head over to eBay now. Unless Bill's selling.
No, not right now.
Yeah. Okay. We've got John Barry did the Ipcress File soundtrack. Yeah, I think he did.
That's right. Yes, he did.
I can't remember how it goes, but it's really good.
Right, and it's totally unlike his Bond soundtracks. I mean, which talks about his versatility.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so back to U.N.C.L.E. I think I can't remember. You did the Bond connection, and we've done the questions. Keep the questions coming if you have anything else you want to ask Bill about U.N.C.L.E. Is there anything else you want to say about the Man from U.N.C.L.E? How many seasons was it in the end?
Three and a half.
3.5.
It got canceled midway through its fourth season. Yeah. And of course, there was also a spinoff called The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. that lasted one season, one grim season. It was not the best, but that also has a little bit of Fleming canon in the name of the character April Dancer.
Mm-hmm.
who was originally envisioned by Fleming as kind of a Moneypenny type character.
Mm-hmm.
Now that wasn't used in that context, but what happened was NBC was pressuring the production team for a spinoff featuring a woman agent, and they resisted for a long time. And there was a network executive, his wife was a writer, she was pushing this idea, and she says, "Oh, I have a great name." And her name was, the woman agent would be known as Cookie Fortune. And the writer who was given when they finally like,
it's really bad.
Yeah, we have to do this. And it's like, so the writer who was assigned this is, says, "Iris, no way we're going to call her Cookie Fortune. No way." But he had access to the Fleming material and sees the name April Dance. It's like, yes, this is this name. We'll go with this name. This is much better. So.
Okay, and can you also tell us a bit about the in inverted commas films that were made of U.N.C.L.E? Because am I right in saying that they were shown in the UK but not the States, or am I completely wrong there?
No, you're correct. I mean, actually, a couple were shown in the States at the peak of popularity, but they were intended for the international audience. The first one came about because, okay, they're making the pilot, and they said, in case this doesn't sell, if we could like add some scenes and get it to like movie length, maybe we could then release it as a movie and get some of our costs back. So the pilot proper had been filmed in November of '63, and the extra scenes were written. Well, they were delivered in February of '64, and then the shot thereafter. Luciana Paluzzi is in them. And okay, see if this sounds familiar. Luciana Paluzzi plays a character named Angela. She makes love to Solo, then tries to kill him, but then is killed by her own people instead. Now, it doesn't have the flourishes that were in Thunderball. And did Eon know about this when they cast her? I don't know. But it is, it is very remarkable how Angela and Fiona Volpe are very similar characters played by the same actress. I mean, essentially, it was a test run for her for Thunderball. But so that's how the first one came about. And then the second one, they filmed one episode in color, did some extra scenes for it. And then from then on, they started doing 2-part episodes, and those would be the movies. And NBC agreed to only run them once. In return, NBC would get a cut of the movie money, for not rerunning them. And but yes, they were all shown in the UK, and they were, at least the early ones were pretty popular. And then, but they did show up in the US. They did a double feature of the first 2. And so a few were shown, but there were a total of 8, and not that many were shown in the US.
Yeah, well, because I remember seeing the films, but I also remember seeing the episodes on which they were based, which was very confusing as a kid.
Yes, and because there are certainly differences, because there was this one character, he's an Australian agent for U.N.C.L.E, and in the movie he's killed by the fake Solo. The movie version is called The Spy with My Face. But in the TV version, he survived. So like that's about as different as you can get. And anyway, and also, just real quick, just tying this to Bond. So there are actually several crew members on Diamonds Are Forever had worked on U.N.C.L.E. By that time, of course, U.N.C.L.E was off the air, but they had titled, well, perhaps the most prominent, they had 2 stunt arrangers on that movie. You had Bob Simmons, as usual, for the UK stuff as stunt arranger, but for the American shot stuff, it was a guy named Paul Baxley. And he had worked on U.N.C.L.E as a stunt guy and second unit director. And like I said, he was doing the stunt arranging for the US shot scenes in Diamonds, and he doubled for Connery in the Bamber and Bambi and Thumper scene. And I only learned this recently because I saw one of these behind the scenes photos. It was, where they were filming at that place in Palm Springs where they shot the Bambi and Thumper stuff. And, in the foreground, you have got Connery with the white shirt, white pants, and the big fat pink tie. And in the background, there's Paul
don't
Baxley.
Bring up the pink tie.
Paul Baxley wearing the same outfit. So, I know Connery did a fair amount of his own stunts in that sequence, but I there's probably some shots of where he's like really getting kicked. That's probably Paul Baxley.
Yeah. I see we're down to about 4 minutes remaining of our live stream, and just going through the comments here. There's one I missed, I think, from Tim again, which is, how did the 1983 TV movie The Return of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. come about? Can you do a brief?
I'll do super brief. There were a couple guys trying to launch a theatrical film, but MGM was not very confident in them. And so instead they decided to go with a TV movie, and that return thing got greenlit instead. And anyway, that's what happened. I know somebody who worked on that project. His official title was technical advisor, and he was like he kept trying to push him in like going in the direction of classic Uncle, and they kept wanting to make changes. So what you going to do? He just anyway.
No, I've just seen we've got Paul Kariazi who is watching and left a few comments. And Paul, yeah, if you don't know who he is, he did this How to Live the James Bond Lifestyle, the complete seminar on 8 CDs, which I think is still available from Amazon. So just wanted to say hi, Paul. And let's see, has anyone watched The Girl from U.N.C.L.E? Yes, I think Bill has.
Bill has been. In 2014, I bought it. Finally was available on home video. I bit the bullet and I bought it, and just to fill out the Girl from U.N.C.L.E page on my website. And it was a little grim at times.
Yeah, the follow-up question is, any good? I think the answer is no.
A few episodes are okay. One of the highlights is Boris Karloff playing a woman. It's actually pretty good. Called The Mother Muffin Affair. Karloff played Mother Muffin.
Oh God. Okay, Bill. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our hour. So great talking to you as always. This one was thrown together in a bit of a hurry, but I think that's the way we work.
Yeah, that's the way we roll.
Yeah. Well, if anybody has got any specific topics that you want us to cover, then leave a comment or contact us via Twitter or Facebook or email, or you remember email? Whichever way, and we'll try and do that. So thanks everybody for watching. I will try and actually disconnect the live stream, because last time I didn't manage to do it, although I did cut Bill off by accident. So I didn't. This time I managed not to cut you off, Bill. I'm improving.
That's great.
Okay, well, great talking to you, and as I said to everybody, thanks for watching, and see you all soon.
Take care.
Bye.